And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, today I'm going to be reviewing War of the Ring, the second edition. Yes, finally! And I kind of struggled with talking about this one because I've already reviewed the original War of the Ring. It was a written review back when I did those, and I said it was a fantastically great game. This one here is a second edition. It's a nicer version. Came out from Ares Game, a new company that was founded in part to republish War of the Ring. So what I'm going to be doing in this game, usually in my reviews, I kind of explain how to play the game and then give my thoughts on it. I'm not going to be explaining how to play the game. Instead, I'm going to be taking a look at different aspects of the game. So this is not a place to learn how to play War of the Ring. Instead, we're going to take a look at different features. Here we go. Okay, let's start with my impressions here. First of all, the game is ginormous. It's huge. It's bigger than the original War of the Ring was. Some of the things that they've done in regards to that are these cards are so much bigger. There's a lot of text on the cards. And I mean, essentially each card is 2 cards. So if you're going to give me only a whole card's worth of information on half of a card, then that's fantastic to do it on such big cards as these. The board, though, is big, and there's not a lot of wasted space, although there's, still a decent amount here in the water, and there still is a good chunk of regions on the board, which pretty much never get used. But the game itself, the components, the miniatures, I mean, it just looks beautiful. Having all these miniatures all over the place. My only concern with the miniatures was the same one I had in the original game, was that I honestly can never remember which guy is which. For example, here I have 2 soldiers, and one's from Gondor and one's from Ronan. And yes, they're different. They have different shields, and they have different things on their shields. And if you, pin me down on it, I can tell you which one's which. But looking at them at a glance, it's really difficult. The bad guys are easier because their elites have wolves and elephants and giant trolls. But even their little guys, you glance at the board, it just would have been nice, I think, had each army been a completely different color. Probably. And I guess that would have been more expensive, but I mean, the game's already not that cheap anyway. Now, let's talk about the dice. Now, the dice, they really up the quality of the dice, too. The dice is the main mechanic of this game. If you've never played War of the Ring before, essentially, the dice are the core mechanic in the sense that you're going to roll dice, and whatever actions you roll are the actions you can take that turn, although most of the symbols that you roll allow you for different actions. Much of that has a concentration down here on this hunt for the ring. Now, the hunt for the ring is a really fascinating, terrific thing because that's the whole focus of this game. The game itself revolves around, are you going to catch the Fellowship of the Ring, or are they going to make it to Mount Doom? They start up here in Rivendell, and they get down there, and they're going to try to go the fastest possible way that they can go, although going the fastest way, for example, through Moria, causes the chance of them being corrupted much more possible. But as the game progresses, you'll be drawing tokens and adding corruption to those folks as the game, as you do that. But those tokens are only going to be drawn and only look through depending on how many people you allocate to the search. See, the bad guy can send the Nazgul to go and try and search for the ring, but the Nazgul are also really effective leaders in combat. The dark side can also, I don't know why I call him the dark side, the Sauron's team can also allocate dice to the hunt for ring, and sometimes he has to allocate them. And the larger the Fellowship of the Ring is, the more dice you can send, but at the same time, the more you hunt down that ring, the less everything else here goes on the board. See, each side has 2 ways to win. The good guys can win by getting the ring to Mount Doom, or they can win militarily, which isn't really possible in the books, but essentially what they mean is the military does so well that Sauron's totally distracted, and they just walk in and drop the ring in. The bad guys can win by, stopping the Fellowship, getting the ring from them, or corrupting Frodo completely, or by having a military victory, essentially saying that if you get the ring in Mount Doom, who cares? We've already conquered Earth anyway, so what does it matter? So there's that going on. And if you look at the board, it's hard to tell from just this cursory look here, but there is so many more bad guys on the board than good guys. I mean, if you look over here, there's just a ton of these guys here. And so Sauron's forces really have that advantage. But the good guys have an advantage, again, with this Fellowship of the Ring, in the sense they have all these folks here in the Fellowship of the Ring. And the more people you have in the Fellowship of the Ring, the better that you will do. But you're going to want to, as time goes by, peel these off, maybe some of them right away, because they can go off, and when they separate from that, they'll become characters who move around the board and become powerful in their own right. And two of them, Aragorn and Gandalf, can hopefully eventually add more dice to your side. So the whole Fellowship of the Ring movement is a whole central key to the game, and I really like how those tokens are drawn and dice are allocated for that purpose. So the dice are used for different things, and one of those is the Hunt for the Ring, which is a focal point of the game. Another one is these event cards. The event cards in this game are just phenomenal to me. Most of them have a use that you can use in a battle, but another one, they let you separate people from the Fellowship, or they can stop you from doing different things, add tiles that don't do anything at all to the Hunt for the Rings tile pool. The bad guys can add those too. And there's two different types of cards for each of the armies. And as I said, the card size is fantastic, and there's a lot going on there. One of the things that these cards are used for, and action dice will be used for, is this political track. And this is one of the most unique things of the game. At the beginning of the game, only the elves are active. And what you have here is you have different guys on this track here, and you can use dice to move them down to when they're at war. Only when you're at war can you fight somebody else. The Shadow can move to war right away. However, half the good guys on the board essentially are immobilized at the beginning of the game. So the Fellowship can wake these people up if they move through the realm and get them down, but it might not even be worth it. I've played games before where the dwarves, who have some forces up here, and we're glad that the dwarves exist and everything, and in the Hobbit movies they do a fantastic job, they're never going to get into battle. So I've explained to you kind of the focal point of the game. That's rolling these dice. You're working a political system on the side. You are working a hunt for the Fellowship Ring, and then you're working a straight-up battle game as you move forces around, add more forces. These are all the forces on the game board at the beginning, but look how many more have not been placed out on the board. This is a lot of units, and there really can be a lot of units. In fact, so many units that the game has different spots where you can put people in the cities themselves where they can be besieged. And I think that's a neat concept to the game. That's something way back from Access and Allies. So my component quality is high. The artwork, there's not much artwork in the game, but it is phenomenal. And the options that players have on their turn are really great and varied, because you really, as the Fellowship, have to decide who you'll peel off and where you'll send them. You have to decide which battles are important to fight. You have to decide which nations to get involved. And you have to decide the best path to get the ring to Doom. The bad guys have actually, even though they have more dice, I wonder if they have fewer choices, but they have a lot of options militarily, and they have to decide what they're going to hunt down. Will you just try to crush them in this tier as quickly as you can, unlike the waiting in the movie to the end? Or, Helm's Deep, can that fall pretty quickly? Or will you go and take out the elves before the other armies get involved? And so there's a lot of interesting things here. Now, this game does not include the expansion. There is an expansion for this game out that I have not played, so I do not know what that adds. But I will say that the game itself, I think, plays very well as it is. War of the Ring is a two-player game. The rules mention that you can play 4 players, where basically, though, you're playing a two-player game, just each of you take some of the armies. And I think it actually plays best as a two-player game. So, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I said this when I first played this game, and it comes up now. War of the Ring, the second edition, just as the first, is a definitive game about the Lord of the Rings trilogy. From the sweeping theme, from including everything from the battles to the moving of the Fellowship Ring, there's pretty much everything here. Yeah, we don't see Ents coming out on the board, although there's a card that has them involved, and not every little single thing from the books is in this game. There's no Tom Bombadil, character up here singing songs. But there is a lot in this game, and it even brings out things that are barely hinted at in the book, especially with these politics all around there. And it allows you to take the game on tracks. For example, you can have Aragorn lead the Fellowship quickly and run down and help Minas Tirith, which might get assaulted quickly in the game. And you say, well, that's not how the books work, but that easily could have happened. So anyhow, 2 big thumbs up on me. The only negative you'll notice that I've said was, the hard sometimes to tell the pieces apart. It's also a fairly long game. Setting it up takes a while. I would say just setting up this board here, took up maybe 20 to 30 minutes. There's a lot of pieces that go in a lot of places, and you have to kind of figure out where everything goes. I guess you could have it memorized after a while, but still. It's an involving game. There's a lot of choices to make, but honestly, when it comes down to it, you're not that overwhelmed. You look at this die and say, oh, I rolled this. This is going to let me either draw an event card or play an event card. I have 3 event cards in my hand. There's lots of choices, but like I said, it's not like there's a million or so. So anyhow, that's War of the Ring 2nd Edition. Better than the 1st edition, but only because they've kind of upgraded everything. There's not much more that I can add after that. I just wanted to say it's a fantastic game. It has replaced the 1st edition on my shelf. I don't get to play this game as much as I'd like to because it's a long game. It can be 3 hours plus sometimes, but it is very fulfilling. It is a definitive Lord of the Rings experience. Super high quality components. Ares put themselves on the map when they published this. They're still publishing fantastic games. War of the Ring 2nd Edition.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at DicetowerNetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
This one is hard. I keep doing it. Whoa! Maybe that's gonna fall when it falls.